Hello everyone, Adrienne here. Thank you for coming to my channel and checking out today's video on my palette purchases for the month of February. Before we get into the palettes of February, I gotta ask you guys' opinion. Getting ready today because I wasn't planning on filming, I decided impromptu to put this video together, and I wanted to try out some makeup products that I had in my stash that I hadn't been using. So I grabbed these two foundations. This is the Becca Ultimate Coverage Foundation, and this one is Maybelline's Dream Liquid Mousse Foundation in the shade Caramel. And the Becca Foundation is in the shade Bamboo, which this one was way too light, but I like the yellow tones in it. And this one was a little bit too dark with very neutral undertones, no yellow at all. So when I mixed them together and put them on, I thought I didn't get the mixture right and maybe everything looked too light. But then looking at my neck and looking on camera, it looks pretty good. But I want your opinion down in the comment section on if you think this looks okay or not, because I'm trying to not buy foundations since I'm such a eyeshadow palette hoarder. I've got a drawer with a few foundations in there that I want to try to make work on my channel and in everyday life. But if you think this is a good shade, and I'll turn my neck this way so you can see for everyday life, just comment down below and let me know so I'm not running around out in public looking like crazy. But you didn't come here to talk about foundation, so let's get into my palette purchases for the month of February. I'm going to start with Colorful Camille. If you've never checked her channel out, I will leave a link to her channel down below in the description box. I watch her channel, and every time I watch this girl's channel, I know I'm going to be shopping. So I think I might have got this at the end of January, and it's, let's see, the bhCosmetics, a limited edition 2020 palette. And I know you might be thinking, why on earth would you want a commemorative palette for 2020? Because it is limited edition. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up. This just pops off this way. 2020 really wasn't like the worst year for me. There were some good highlights in it. I got to come home from my nursing job and just run my channel and pretty much be free to do whatever I want to do working from home now. So that was good, and just getting some things paid off and being blessed financially tremendously. So 2020 worked out well, and I was sick throughout 2020, but I am recovering, and obviously some people that had COVID didn't get a chance to recover. So anytime you can get over being ill like that, that's a blessing. This is the commemorative palette for 2020, and it's got some different things to remember it by. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see without my glasses. I may end up having to put those on throughout the video. But like this shade is Kobe for Kobe Bryant, and obviously his helicopter crash, and just they're named after Rona and different things like that. So I decided I wanted to keep this because I thought it was a cute idea, and it's an indie brand. I wanted to support them, a black-owned indie brand. So this was one that I saw on Colorful Camille's channel and ended up buying. Also, while I was shopping on her channel, one of her videos, I learned about the Makeup Shack. And if you see me getting fingerprints all over my palettes right now, that's because my knuckles were so ashy before I started this video, and I just couldn't handle the ash. So I'm going to have to just fingerprint my palettes. But this is Makeup Shack's Majestic palette, and it comes with a cover where it just slides in like this, and it looks exactly like the palette. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. These are the shades in here, and I love grungy shades. I am so into grungy palettes, so this is why I picked this palette up, and the size of the pants and the palette. I think this palette is gorgeous. It is what I'm wearing today. I didn't film this eye look. This is the first time I've dipped into this palette besides swatching a little bit of the shades on my hands to decide what I was going to put on today. But I am wearing this shade here on the eyelid, this shade in the crease, and this shade in the crease and outer V, and just an inner corner highlight pop right here of this shade. But so far I'm liking this palette. I will be using all the shades in the palette, and whether or not I decide to do a get ready with me, do the looks on camera, or if I just record or take pictures of the look, I will have looks of all these shades once I'm done with it and let you know what I think of this palette and the quality of it. In addition to this brand, Majestic palette, I also picked up their Nightfall palette. Same thing with the outer covering the little slip for it. This palette is the same size as the other one. It's kind of grungy, but it's got lots of pops of color. This one, I guess some of these are kind of primary pops of color, maybe secondary. I don't typically like rainbow-like palettes, but they had some grungy looking shades mixed in with it, and that's why I went ahead and picked this one up. So I can't wait to get into it for pops of color and just to see how these mattes perform, especially this deep navy looking blue shade here, because sometimes blues are the trickiest to formulate and get to work right. So that's another one that, thanks to watching the Colorful Camille's channel, I picked up. And the sad thing about it is, as she was recording her video, she would show a palette, and that video that I watched was probably a month and a half ago, and I still got shopping carts open on my cell phone from that video of hers that I watched. These brands, I picked them up like right as she was talking about them in the video. I would pause it and go open up a cart and throw stuff in and buy it. And this is another brand that I heard her mention months back. She mentioned that Playing and Makeup by Yolando. I picked up the Jamrock. I think this is, what is this? Colored Washana palette. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's got a sleeve that just slides on. That looks exactly like the palette. This is a pastel palette. I'm happy to be trying this in my collection. I like this pastel palette because it didn't look like all super light shades like on the top row, but it looks like you've got some deeper shades to mix in with the palette. So I was curious about this palette from watching Colorful Camille's channel, and then my girl Lynette from LBD Beauty, her channel is LBD Beauty. She texted me and told me that these palettes were on sale a couple weeks ago. So I picked this palette up because of her letting me know that it was on sale. I've been kind of hem-hawing around about whether or not I wanted to get it. And it wasn't the only one that I picked up during that sale. I also got the No Limitations palette. And it's got the same type of color on it. And it's got the colors of the Jamaican flag on the back. So that is really cute also. I'm not even paying attention to how many pans these palettes are. Oh well, this is just a haul anyway and not any type of review or first impressions. But this palette, obviously it's grungy and colorful at the same time, so it just basically killed two birds with one stone, and I wanted to really check out the quality and get variation. So now I got some grunge and I got some pops of colors, and I got a pastel palette for this from this brand, so I'm really excited to be trying them out. About a week and a half ago, I went to Ulta, and I went to Ulta to pick up this palette. I have taken it out of the box, and I've like kind of trashed in the last week the box because it was really squishy, but it's the Jaclyn Hill Volume 2 palette. I really was burnt out on palettes when this palette came out around this time last year. Plus, I thought it was really pretty when I saw it in people's videos, but when I saw it at Ulta, and the same thing, I kind of think of it now when I look at it, and I have kind of swatched it a little bit and played with it in the last week, not with any eye looks, but just swatching it on my hands. The pictures look a lot prettier to me, and looking at it in people's videos than what it does in person. A lot of the colors seem to look the same to me, and that's why I drug my feet on buying this palette. But for like a month, I was obsessed with getting this palette, and I finally decided that I was going to get it and try it out. And in addition to this palette, go back and play with the first one, because I know they've reformulated it, but I have the original OG palette before they reformulated it. And for some reason, as gorgeous as that palette is, like there's only a couple different looks that I did with it a few times, and I just never picked the palette back up. And it's a good quality palette. So both of these palettes I want to get into and play around with a little bit more. The whole trip was I was supposed to go pick that one palette up, turn around, and walk out. And I even had my husband take me and drop me off, thinking, oh, okay, he's sitting out in the car, so I'll hurry up and get out of there. But no, it didn't work out that way. I ended up picking up a couple of palettes by bhCosmetics. And it's not like these were impulse buys. I have been contemplating picking up these palettes from bhCosmetics all along. I just wasn't sure when I was going to do it or if it was really high priority. And the first one that I picked up was the Smitten in Switzerland palette, and it's got the little sleeve that looks like this also that the palette slides into. And this little 16 pan palette, I really can't tell you, well, I guess I can tell you why I wanted it. Let me pull the little sleeve off. As you can see, I have played in it. I've already created 2 looks with it, and I've got pictures, and I'll be showing you guys updates of what I think of this palette coming up in the future in another video, because I have already gotten into it. The cool tone looks in it is what really caught my attention, and I was obsessed with this palette for a few months. I went back and forth with it thinking, oh, it's going to be too washed out and everything's going to look kind of chalky on you. You don't need this palette. But I really wanted this palette. And I was so inspired with it. Like the same day that I got it home from the store, I did 2 looks with this palette in the first day. So that was a shocker for me, because this palette does not look like the typical palette in my collection that I pick and go after, in my opinion. And also, the Beautiful in Barcelona palette, and this is the sleeve here, and the palette, 16 pan palette also. This one, I thought that I wanted it, but I wasn't really sure if I was going to get it, because it seemed like it might be too repetitive to other things in my collection. But once I saw it in the store, obviously I didn't get to swatch it, I fell in love with these colors. The pictures on the website just did not do it justice with the richness, and I wanted to try the quality of this palette out and just see what I thought of it. So I went ahead and picked this one up from Ulta at the same time. Another palette I am going to mention by bhCosmetics that I picked up and I forgot to mention, haven't talked about, is their Naughty palette, the Christmas palette. I picked that up a few months ago. I can't even remember. I think I did get it from Ulta. It's put away in a drawer right now, but I haven't even taken the plastic off of it to even swatch it. So that's another palette that I can't wait to do some looks with and tell you guys what I think of the quality, because I've heard so many good things about it, and the color story is gorgeous. I think they're making a mistake by having it a limited edition palette. That being said, if you haven't already picked it up, I was on the bhCosmetics website, and I think it was like $11 or $14, something like that. So if you want to get your hands on that, even though I haven't made any videos of it yet, you might want to go ahead and pick that up. Also, Ulta, I think, still has it on their website. And the last thing I picked up palette-wise at Ulta that day was the Revolution times Tammy, the tropical, what is it, the Tropical Twilight palette. This is the outer carton for that palette, and this is the actual palette. Open it up and show you the shades here. Let me pull this plastic off. They do have it taped down. These are the colors of her Tropical Twilight collection. And in case you guys didn't know, I am filming this video on the last day of February. And tomorrow, March 1st, Tammy is going to be coming out with her own first palette that she created herself. So check Tammy Clark's website out. And I think it's something about butterflies. A butterfly palette that she's coming out with. So this palette is probably about a year old, and I'm just now picking it up. I wasn't sure if I was going to get it. I like Makeup Revolution's color stories so much, but I'm not a fan of their metallic shimmer formulas. Their mattes seem to do okay with me, so I always feel like anytime I'm spending my money on a Revolution palette, like I'm taking a 50-50 chance that I'm getting hot garbage. But I really wanted to support her collab, and I am very familiar because I have a huge Revolution, Makeup Revolution collection. I'm familiar with their palettes and how to make them work, but that being said, they really, really are work. So that I'm definitely going to be doing some looks with. I'm not sure if I'll be picking up her new palette or not. I have so many of those shades in my collection already, but I may do it just because I want to support her brand. But moving along, I picked up my first palette from the indie brand Give Me Glow, and it's the Juicy Olive palette, and this one has been out forever. I drug my feet and hem-hawed around, in case you don't remember what this palette looks like or have never seen it, hem-hawed around about whether or not I was going to get this palette ever since it launched. I love green palettes, and this was one of my favorite to look at. I just didn't want to spend $30 for a 6-pan palette. But I finally broke down and got it, and the pan sizes are huge in this palette, so that's another thing I liked about it. I just decided that it was a palette that I definitely was not going to want to miss out on, so I went ahead and got it. And this brand, I just heard of it. It's got a sleeve just like the package, and it is the Rose Glam Boutique, the Mystical Galaxy palette. I decided last year that if I found, what is it, the Pressed Glitter palette that I really like the colors of, I wanted an individual pressed glitter palette. I know you hear me complain about it if you've watched any of my ColourPop videos. I don't want it in my little 9-pan palettes. I feel like a 9-pan palette is limited on the color choices so much that I don't want it wasted on a pressed glitter. A pressed glitter is something that I would be putting together some type of special, unique look. It's not something that I would wear on a regular everyday basis or want to be bothered with. But as soon as I saw this palette, I think it was on Trend Mood like 2 weeks ago, I decided I wanted it and ordered it right away, and it shipped to me and came to me within like a week. And it's multi-chrome glitters. I don't know. I'm going to try to hold it up and move it to see if maybe you guys can see the different multi-chrome shades. So I thought this was really unique and something that I wanted in my collections. And I finally bit the bullet and got this gorgeous palette here, the Glam Ice Cream Dream palette. I can't even believe I bought this. Usually their packaging and their whole theme, I thought it was cute, but it wasn't something that I wanted to put in my makeup collection because I didn't know how I was going to store it. But when I saw this pastel palette, I fell in love with it. And even this quirky packaging, I like a lot. I'm not going to try to pry the palette out of the box. This is the actual palette in case you've never seen this palette before. And it is so cute. I like how these little candy sprinkles move. Let me see if I can turn it upside down. Yeah. The candy sprinkles were adorable to me. And the pastel shades in here, let me turn this box upside down so I'm not blinding you. Okay, now that I've worked my butt off to get this thing into focus, I'm not going to be able to have my head in the frame, but I wanted this palette because of that top row, and I do have the palette upside down. I thought that they would be some richer shades that I could deepen up a look with, and a lot of the pastels were medium tone and not the lightest of tones, and it is similar to that Playing in Makeup with Yolanda, that pastel palette that I got from her brand. But I do see some differences in here. So, of course, I'm going to be comparing the two and the quality against one another. So, this is a palette that I want to spend some time in, both of them, because they were, I think, like $45 palettes. I did get the Glam Light palette. No, I paid full price for the Glam Light palette. It wasn't on sale when I got it. So, I can't wait to get into that, and it just makes me so excited for spring and summer and to be done with winter, and those are really cute, but I'll wear those palettes now if I want to, and that's part of what I want to do is see some of those pastel shades, if I can also pair them up with some of the deeper, richer shades in my collection and just come out with some pretty unique matte looks, because I like matte eyeshadow looks also, but when I used to wear a lot of matte eyeshadows, they were always neutral tones. So I'd like to try it with some pops of color, and that will definitely help with giving different depth and dimension with some of my richer, deeper tones. The next palette I picked up, I was so excited to get. It's my first Pat McGrath Mothership palette, and I don't want to be blinding you with this. Obviously, this is the, oh my gosh, I can't even remember what it's called. I think it's the Rose Decadence palette. It's the number 7 palette, the limited edition packaging. I picked it up from her website a few weeks ago when she released it before Valentine's Day. I did refuse to buy this palette with the black packaging. I was like, oh well, I just won't have it if I buy it. There's a few Pat McGrath palettes that I would like to try, but obviously with a price point of $125 for 10 shades, I know there's a lot of people that are Mama Pat fans or Auntie Pat, and they will buy whatever she puts out, but I am not the one at $125 for a 10-pan palette. So I've not got to play in this palette or swatched it yet. So I think this is a palette that I want to do definitely for sure my first impressions and everything with it with you guys, just for the shock and awe of it, because I really do believe that it's as good a quality as what everybody says it is, but I want to be on camera for my first reactions with it so I can see if it's as great and worth $125 for 10 shades like everybody says. The packaging is just so luxurious and heavy, and no, I don't have the unicarton, the outer box, and I know that everybody's such a fan for her artwork and all that, but for that number 7 palette, I didn't like that creepy artwork at all, the bee and stuff crawling on the girl's mouth, and the girl just looked half dead to me and all that, and I really wasn't with the packaging. And in addition to not liking the packaging for that one, which when I ordered it, I was like, if I could just get the number 6 packaging with the number 7 palette, that would be perfect. I was kind of thinking about keeping the packaging, even though I really didn't like it. But once I got it, the bottom part, the bottom corner of the packaging was ripped. And I kept trying to piece it back together. And as solid as this palette is, I was a little nervous that if I picked the palette up and forgot that that bottom of the packaging was ripped, that my palette might slip through and that I'd end up dropping my palette and breaking it. So I went ahead and threw that away. It doesn't look as pretty as what the palette actually is on the outside because of all my fingerprints, but this packaging is gorgeous and really luxurious. So I'm happy to have my first Mothership palette. I can't say that I won't buy another one. I don't know. We'll just see how the quality of this one goes, but I definitely will have like all 10 shades used before I pick up another Mothership palette, because those palettes are no joke. The next brand that I purchased from, it's the first time I've ever purchased from this brand also. I did go ahead and order from bhCosmetics. It's the first time I've ever ordered anything from them. And I did pick up the Club Nebula palette with Angelica-Nikovis, their collab with Angelica-Nikovis. This is what the palette looks like on the outside. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And it's got nice luxurious packaging also. This is really sturdy. This isn't one of those flimsy ones. It's the kind that you could use to mix colors on. That's pretty sturdy. This is what the shades look like in case you haven't seen it. I'm sure everybody's seen this palette by now. It is the hot new palette that's been out that people have been recording lots of looks with. And as you can see, I have gotten into this palette and I did create one look with it. As soon as I got it, I was so excited. I didn't record myself filming the look, but I did take pictures and videos. So when I do post my video of this palette, really kind of getting burnt out on just doing first impressions of this palette. So I won't be doing a first impression on this one. Every shade in this palette will be used and you'll be able to see what the colors look like on my eyes. And the reasoning behind that is I feel like some of these more expensive palettes, you guys should just get a full review and should know how everything performs. And especially with this one being that they had the reorder because they sold out. January 19th is when I ordered this, and it took forever to get this palette. I think it was a little over a month exactly that it took to get the palette. And they had a restock of it on the 17th of February, and that sold out. So I don't know if they're going to be able to restock the palette anyway. So there's no point in me just doing first impressions and rushing through it because you're not able to order it right now anyway. But with that palette, when I was ordering it, I did go ahead and pick up a Futurism bundle. With the bundle, I was only able to get the 3 palette one. You can't get the whole set right now because unfortunately they've been out of like that sci-fi green palette and a turquoise palette, and I'm so sorry that I drug my heels with that Futurism set because I've known that I've wanted it for like a year and a half, and I kept thinking, oh, it'll be there, and I'd put it in the cart, take it out, put it in the cart, take it out, and I should have purchased it because they've been out of those palettes for months, and I don't know if because of COVID they are not able to get their ingredients or if the company is struggling and they're just busy with that Escape Pod palette that they released over the summer and Angelica's release as to why they're not getting that restock. I did go ahead and pick up the Kaleidos Lunar Lavender palette, and this is the Unicarton. This is the outer palette in case you guys haven't seen it. It has been out since summer or spring, so it has been around for a while. And I love Kaleidos packaging. They have some of the prettiest packaging. Let me see if I can get this plastic off of here so you guys can see the colors better. I think that this is going to be a really pretty summer palette also. I'm happy that I do have the Club Nebula palette because I think that this is going to mix really well with that for creating some looks. Let me turn it this way. See if I can't get this to come into focus. I think that's as good as it's going to get, but I do think that it's going to pair beautifully with the Club Nebula palette. And I do like lavenders. I'm just going to want those shades to be a lot deeper, but I really wanted to try Kaleidos quality out. I've heard people say it compares to Pat McGrath's quality. I'm really interested to see if that's true now that I have the Pat McGrath Mothership palette. And I also picked up this Kaleidos palette. Let's see, which one is this? This is the Futurism 5, the Electro Turquoise palette. This is the outer Unicarton for it, and this is the actual palette. Let me be careful how I open this up. For some reason, this shade likes to stick to the other magnetic side when I open it. So I'm so happy it stayed in place this time. But this is the colors in this palette, and this is gorgeous also. I'm really going to like this for summer, I think, and I can already think of some other palettes that I would like to pair it with. I can't say that I look at these totally and think one and done. A lot of it, I like some richer, deeper, contrasting shades. So when I do looks with these palettes, I'm probably not going to do it like a one and done palette, which that's usually a pet peeve for me because I don't like pulling in other palettes to complete a look. But if I do decide to do that in the thumbnail, I'll have a picture of both of the palettes that I'm using so you guys know ahead of time. And I did go ahead and pick this one up, and this one is the Futurism 2 palette, the Cyber Bronze palette. This was definitely, when I first saw Kaleidos and their brand and this whole Futurism release, because this release with these palettes is relatively old now. This was the first one that I wanted over the Sci-Fi Green because I wanted that red. Nobody was doing the red shades yet, and I wanted it. Nobody was doing metallic reds. It was even hard to find matte reds at that time. Now everybody is doing them and doing a pretty good job of it, so it doesn't seem quite as exciting to me. The color story, I don't know if I'm still as fired up about it as I was a couple of years ago when it came out, but I'm sure I will be able to complete some really pretty looks with that. So I'm hoping that they do a restock of their other Futurism palettes, and the Neon palette that they had over this past summer. I wish I would have picked that up also, and that one was limited edition, so I know they're not going to bring that back in. When Kaleidos says something is limited edition and they're not going to bring it back, from now on I will definitely be believing them and pick up everything I want, because that Deep Sea Luster palette, I didn't know anything about that palette until, after it was not available anymore. But my understanding is that they're never going to be able to bring that palette back, that they can't source the pigments. So if you think that you want any of this stuff from Kaleidos that I showed you, I would definitely not drag my feet on getting it. And hopefully they do another restock of the Angelica Nigvis palette, because that is really pretty and got some unique shades in it. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. These are all the palettes that I took in the month of February. I already started working on some videos with them, but I can't wait to show you guys more than some just first impressions of things and really have solid opinions on some of these palettes, since they're not necessarily the newest releases. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. You'll also want to hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button so YouTube notifies you every time I upload a new video. I'll see you guys soon.